Watercourses underground and a handprint on rock shocks me to the nearness of the distant child, woman, man, human. What surfaces swimming upward? That which won't stay buried rises through rocks, rough-ridden, rusty. Volume within sound, the cavern's vault reaches. A wrapped bone kit within an urn, within a box, within a crypt. Grave goods, this trove is called. Little amber objects to pocket. What flows unseen beneath our lives? The honored dead or clandestine horrors? I feel a grinding, fist-sized shards shifting, lodging me deeper. A close, dank touch, cave breath, a phosphorescent trickle, blind white forms in the submerged river, trace fossils, an imprint. So thank you, Lara, for the introduction, and thank you, Catherine, for an absolutely wonderful reading. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm coming from Ottawa, the unceded and unsurrendered territory, the Algonquin Anishinaabe, and I'm delighted to be back at Spoken Ink. I think I was one of your guinea pigs for one of your first Zoom readings back in May 2020. So I'm very glad to be here again now that we're all more comfortable with Zoom. So Open Work and Limestone is my latest book. Limestone, as in that opening poem, is rock, is landscape. It's also deep time, ancient history, myth, and ritual. Open work is crochet, lace, as on the wonderful cover image, needlework, work of women's hands. So what I've tried to do in the collection is thread stories of women through time, and in particular my own family stories with these notions of ritual, using some fairy tales, some dreams, some myths. And because of Catherine's wonderful immediacy and clarity in dealing with a poetic memoir, I've mostly picked poems that are more closer to the surface than some of the others in the collection. So more real life and a little bit less myth and ritual. So I'll start with, I didn't inherit the matrilineal fashion flair. In pinwheel hat, cinched waist, tip of her hip, my grandmother Kate was one in a cartload of misses, all in their finery, up to Toronto from Stratford for the day to shop at the brand new Simpsons store, 6 stories high. Handsome Kate, twirling her parasol, the latest style, briefly carefree before marriage and 5 children, before the family sojourn, homesteading in High River, where my mother, her youngest, was born. 5 decades later, my mother had a license to shop, paid by wealthy Vancouver folks, disinclined to scour stores on their own. Mom, famous for her knack with color and cut, loaned them her taste, could always find the perfect sweater, the swankiest purse, the right nip of waist, lapel width, hand feel of fabric, the shade that would set off this one's eyes, enhance another's smile. My mother inherited a sense of style from grandmother Kate, the latest mode for them both, ever alluring, a beacon to light the way to better things. So this is my camel hair coat poem. I don't want always to write about the cleft in my heart, the blade turning, my child who for so long resented me. I believe my mother caused me damage, turned away from my need, restrained my flourishing, as if she tight bound me, wrists and ankles. But so little of what I remember is solid. Her camel hair coat, fluid when she walked. It smelled of Chanel and was slippery smooth inside. She'd drape herself with the coat for her afternoons, resting on the Chesterfield. It was her woven shield, a golden soft refuge against us, her clamoring children. Beneath it, for 20 minutes, she could simply shut her eyes. If mothering is the thing in my life that's pained me most, how can it also have given immeasurable lightness, tripwire delight, flying in freeze frame? the cool trickle that slakes a parched throat. What insight might I have about being a mother, about having a mother? I've written of her, raw-boned and angular when I was small, her hugs all hip bone and rib, how she shrank, a softer body as she aged, the feel of her yield in my arms, the finely creased fabric of her cheeks. Returning home from the chaos after she died, a din of arrangements half a country away, I settled myself to write on a wooden patio chair in the sun. My girl was 7, wanted to climb me, sit in my lap, but I couldn't hold her as I wrote, and I wanted to write, needed to sink into myself. So I pushed her away, let her father lead her into other games, leave your mother be. The chasm opened. My child unmothered, just as I'd been dismantled, unpieced, only a week before. So still on mothering and daughtering, this is rocking chair. Like worry, they say, familiar back and forth, feet cold on wood floor. Me, helpless in trying to know the contours of this small person, eyes so black. Ancient eyes, my dragon, fierce colleague said, softening. My girl, part of me, an instant ago, it seems, in my arms, her skin against my skin, no longer pushing from inside, but stretching me in a different way, a voice of her own and a hunger of her own that I try to sate, long hours, rocking, rocking. Juice and muffins tableside, pre-dawn sustenance. My soul's bare against chill satin of hardwood, punctuation of raised board seams, the bowed yield of rocker rails, wood on wood. My night eyes, my babies, looking at the world, hand on my breast. So the next poem is one of 2 poems in the book that talk about Newgrange in Brunnaboyne, Ireland. It's a Neolithic passage tomb not too far from Dublin that we visited as a family. The poem is called Passage. Our knot of tourists untangles in the low-lit passage, tracing the route the sun takes each solstice dawn. We squeeze along its length, shoulders brushing stone. Reaching the chamber, see chevrons, sheaves, triple spirals faint carved on rock, charred bone bits, soot, shadows, a tomb, grave goods strewn on passage floor, ornaments and tools, beads, potsherds, flakes of flint. My family's dead are ash, scattered, no cairn or tomb. Our daughter waits for us outside. Sudden claustrophobe, she couldn't carry on, fumbled out, the slabs of gray whack pressing in on her. I wish I'd had a lifeline to throw, a silken cord for her safe passage back through time. Icon. I am wood, hand carved, but spirit wrought. Bite of chisel finds in me a god, demon angel, mother, upright, with open hand, offering all. And this is my Mary Pratt poem. It is a ekphrasis based on one of the poems that Catherine mentioned in her poem, Silverfish on Crimson Foil, and also on Gerard Manley Hopkins' writing. Foil. Like Hopkins' shook foil, Mary Pratt's crimson is a madcap ricochet flare, a piercing, gills raw pink red, thin blood on vermilion, light, liquid as stream flow. I might line a sheet with shiny wrap, bake fish upon it, breaded. I still debate, is the reflective surface best, or is matte side up to dim the dazzle? My fresh fillets have no gills, no eyes, no silver scales. This poem is called Endurance. Flows fixed in eerie shapes, white ruins. We know we're done with each other, but current governs, bumps you back to me, spirals me off you. Ice pans float and bob away, meltwater puddles full of sky. Snowblind, I blink back the dark blots, ice cracks and presses. Deep within my hull, strong ship ribs groan and shift, won't stove in. We're hulking ships mired in frozen seas, but spring is creaking open. So in addition to mothers and daughters, there's family also involves sisters, and this is a poem for my sister who's listening to us here tonight or this afternoon. Ultramarine. I'm in an elevator in Las Vegas with my sister. It pauses in its descent. A ding, and the door opens. A woman enters. She is perhaps our age, but dour, scowl cutting lines beside her mouth. I look away, make my posture neutral, unthreatening. But my sister says, I love your toes. The three of us briefly consider the woman's sandaled feet. Nails deep ultramarine with delicately drawn white flowers and curlicues, a few tiny gems placed at frond ends. When I raise my head, the woman's face has unfurled. Her smile opens it, enlivens her eyes. A slight flush shows in her cheeks, even in the elevator's stark fluorescence. A shy thanks from her. The doors slide open and we all exit, go our separate ways into the casino's metallic pings. It spins, trills, and chimes. I'm not, you should know, a Vegas habitué. It's my debut at this shifty hologram of the city. My sister loves it, comes as often as she can, cajoled me to join her, even though gambling gives my stomach a tilt-a-whirl feel. We have our photo taken at an Eiffel Tower, stroll along Ursat Venice's Grand Canal. My sister's trifling comment gave the woman that smile, a bigger jackpot than the slots. I remember the glow when a friend passed along a chance remark from her friend who said, of me, such a pretty face. Begrudging praise in my family, backhanded. For a smart girl, my father said, you sure can be stupid. I deflect compliments like unearned tokens, roll my eyes. But I've learned the value of tiny packages of praise. Now try to accept such morsels, to be, like my sister, free-handed, offering nourishing tidbits to strangers and to friends. So I mentioned at the beginning that some of the family dynamics are reflected in legend, and this is a poem about Boudica, also known as Boudicea. She was a Celtic warrior queen leading her people, the Iceni, in ancient what's now England. She had many successful battles pushing back the Romans in their colonizing efforts, ultimately unsuccessful. This one is called Boudica and the Hare, written in the voice of one of her two daughters. Boudica, my mother, tall before tomorrow's battle, bundles a live hare in a cloak. Her eyes stab the horizon. Lean herself and leporine, she calls on Andraste, voice harsh, lifting the gazing ball skyward in one hand. She seeks augury. No motion in her robe's folds. The hare has ceased struggling. Can my mother queen be weary, weighing altered images in the mirrored orb? Price of revenge in silver coins minted by the thousands, scoured red clay half a sword's length deep. All that remains of 3 cities razed by her fires. Boudica, bringer of victory, lets the hare go, sees where it runs. It seems all augurs well. She strides forth, lifts axe beside the shimmering spear, cries, truth against the world. Ululation from us all, women, children, men. We Iceni raise battle-stripped voices. My sister and I will strike dread, flanking our mother in the chariot. Torques, braided gold around our necks, mark us, her daughters, warriors. So too the tartan mantles we fix with brooches of beaten metal. Her red hair flames, reflects ours. We survived the invaders' rank touch, their stink. We've lived to foretaste vengeance. Now we Iceni move the carts, the cattle, pitch rough tents. On a hill above our camp, day's last light glints baleful off Roman shields. Boudica's eyes stay fixed to once more scan along the hare's ragged route. I'm going to turn back to a poem from earlier in the collection that's in some ways a companion piece or a bookend to the camel hair coat one I read early on. My mother wants to know if I'm happy. It's all that matters to her, she whispers in my dreams. She's trying to ask if she was a good mother. I mumble reassurance. For years, I ached to escape from her, believed it was hate I felt. Did I do you harm? My mother wants to know. I can't answer. In some way, I am wounded. But why did my belly clench fist tight when I read that scene in a Toni Morrison novel? A mother continually, deliberately pricking her baby's skin with diaper pins. Was my horror general or specific? I don't know. My mother wants to know if I forgive her. She clamors with that question. It clatters in my heart. My reflexive, yes, of course, only sometimes feels truthful as rain. Forgive her for being ill? What humane person wouldn't? Am I inhumane to have even briefly let in the scuttling thought that life might be easier if the ones who cause us hurt were simply erased? But death is not erasure. It's the smeary graphite cloud that remains on paper, the pale blurring of old Polaroids. Once in life, my mother asked if I knew I was loved. I recall the yield of her later years, her body soft to my hugs. Younger, she was a bony bulwark against my embrace, guard unassailable. But did I ever feel love? Asking opens a lack in me, the chasm fathomless, still unfilled. And I'll close with another sister poem, although this one is more dreamlike and brings in fairy tale bits and pieces. It's called What Letting Go Means. Our childhood house, a red lily full of shrouded shapes that belong but are never there. Couches crowded in and crown molting in blue baggage. A passageway. Petals fall on blush branches, a zing of knowing. Sister, you and I pause, drunk with rain. We know the quibble of the lilies, the waft of their sick scent. You grip the tree branch in sneakered feet, rubber gripping bark, stubborn spark, this distemper of embers caught on the wind. Love is a fever, but who told us that first? Heat rises from potting soil, the thermostat sings the hours. Go outside, your coat will shed its skin, get soaked through. A glass-top shelter where we can see the sky. Rain will run off, chalky residue shield us from the inky air inside the crawl space. Artifacts, crayons chase color along margins where old worries collect. A kraken wake time we try to obscure. Sister, cough it up, wrangle the lump from your throat, stare at the ground in front of you. Toads or diamonds, signals that the rapid rushing of these rave days is wine-soaked. I'm drawn to the dawn chorus. The door opens and closes before me, memory etched on glass. Dare I let this skein slide through my fingers, open and stretched web thin? My mind a repository of tangles, wool cat's cradled into a bird's nest maze, kinked and fuzzy edged. The heart of the skein where the strings cross and knot. A pull at the right angle, a pop as knots snick free. Memory is flatulent. I share what I sought, the gifts growing up brought, love and fever. You said it first, and I responded in slant rhyme, said give it room to breathe. Energy and fine sparks from my throat. Throat song now wrong, too tight wound to spring, the snap of overwinding, an open wound. Broken wire end stuck in fruit flesh, berry red. Sister, stand back from the fire. from the flame-shaped fantail, the absurd gentian that shades us. Prickles along the back of my neck as I probe the passageway, wield the red lily. Thank you so much again.